that, for more on Trump's transition, let's welcome in columnist at the Daily Signal, author of The War on History, and friend of this show, Jarrett Stepman. Jarrett, before I get to some of Trump's cabinet picks and the issues involved, I want to ask you about these proactive pardons that James Rosen was talking about. It hasn't happened yet. But listen, every president will pardon certain people, but to proactively pardon, let's say, Anthony Fauci, because he might actually be held to account for what he did during the COVID pandemic, the mistakes that were made, you're going to proactively pardon somebody because he might get persecuted by, your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, I would like to have a list of the crimes that they're being pardoned for. I would find that to be very curious. I find it incredible the kind of precedent that this administration is setting. First of all, the lawfare that took place during the Biden administration, which I think was really unprecedented in American history, and then getting out and issuing blanket pardons. It smacks of the kind of thing that, frankly, the kind of attitudes that end republics. And I think that really, I hate to say it, but I think that may have actually been averted during this election. I mean, the combination of lawfare against political enemies and then pardoning your friends seems like something that's unbefitting a president of the United States. And again, I will be very curious to see exactly what crimes these individuals are being pardoned for. And I would imagine, actually, if this does start to happen, it'll go a lot deeper than 3 or 4 people. This is going to go way far down, and there are going to be more pardons issued by the time Trump becomes president.
I just pardon everybody. Everyone gets a pardon. Who needs a pardon? You don't even have to put up your hand. We're just going to give you one. I mean, this is insane. And the hypocrisy, Jarrett, the hypocrisy that Biden, is going to pardon his own son, who was a convicted felon. He was calling Trump a convicted felon, and he wasn't going to pardon his own son, but now all of a sudden he does. I wasn't hosting the show when Biden pardoned Hunter, and he is getting a lot of heat for that, deservedly so as far as I'm concerned, because of how hypocritical it is. Do you think those actions might actually hurt the party moving forward in 2 years or 4 years?
They probably will. I think you see potential future presidential nominees like California Governor Gavin Newsom saying that, oh, he's against this, he's horrified, he's shocked.
Oh,
I don't think anybody's actually shocked.
Yeah. Let's get to one of Trump's most talked about cabinet picks, Pete Hegseth. He's been on the Hill speaking with senators, but reports are persistent that President-elect Trump might replace him with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. What I read today suggests that the opposition to Hegseth might be overblown. At least some of the stories about him might be unfair and untrue. Do you think that the GOP senators who are on the fence will finally jump on board and confirm Hegseth for defense secretary, or might all of this negative press actually wind up keeping him out of the job?
No, I think he's going to ultimately stick. I think Trump in particular likes fighters. I think he's kind of letting Hegseth fight his battle here, and I think he's watching to see what happens through this. I mean, after all, this is a man who's going to be Secretary of Defense. We better hope that he's a fighter that's going to be in that position. And I think a lot of the attacks on him have come from people who don't ultimately want to see any institutional reforms at the Pentagon. They want to see things continue more or less as they are. I think Hegseth, his real crime was that he was a critic, that he was saying that he was going to change things, that he was going to eliminate some of the woke policies, the DEI kind of policies that have really, I think, hurt American effectiveness abroad. And I think that was what he's really being accused of here. This idea that, oh, he drinks or something, that frankly, I'll quote another president who said that I don't care if he drinks, he fights. And I think that Trump's going to look at that and say that this is the man who we need to have in this position.
Well, he's definitely an outsider, and he's like Trump in that way. He's not the guy you might expect to get the job, but maybe he will. And he is a fighter. He wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today, and he said, the press is peddling anonymous story after anonymous story, all meant to smear me and tear me down. It's a textbook manufactured media takedown. Do you think this criticism of the New York Times and other legacy media is on point?
Yeah, it's amazing. All these are based on anonymous sources. I mean, how many stories have we seen over the years that are based entirely on anonymous sources? It's interesting because we had the Vice President Kamala Harris's husband who was accused of hitting a woman years ago. I mean, where was the aggressive reporting on there? Where was the eagerness to find stories on that? You didn't have that in the press. Instead, we get these endless anonymous sources saying that, I saw him do something bad one time many, many years ago, yet we don't have anybody coming out on the record and saying specifically, hey, I saw this. And I think that that really gets to,
Yeah.
how this seems like a witch hunt of this guy. There's, again, if somebody goes on record and says that he did something terrible, well, then that's that. But this is based on anonymous sources. I'm frankly sick of this, and the American people should be too.
Well, before we go, I want to get your thoughts on Trump's Department of Government Efficiency. The leaders of that department, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill, promoting their upcoming cost-cutting efforts. I'm reading they might see a lot of challenges in D.C. when they try to trim the fat. How easy or how difficult will it be for them to get any kind of job done?
It is a monumental task. I will say that reforming the federal government is a lot different than reforming a business. Now, we have two of the sharpest minds in the country tasked with this. I will say that even beyond the efficiency, which will be very difficult, I'm sure there'll be a lot of fat to cut. I think it's the additional job that needs to be done is going after people who are ideologically committed to go after the enemies. Like there are people like in FEMA who went after Trump supporters and to try to deny them benefits. I think that's a really necessary task to not just streamline the federal government, which is obviously needs to be streamlined, but go after the tyranny. I think that's taken place, the tyranny that's taken place from the federal side of things, and I think that that is the major task. That if they accomplish some of that, it'll be a major success. And I hope they're able to do it. I think we couldn't have gotten two people who'll be better at doing that.
Well, there seems like there's a lot of ways. My producer tells me that 94% of government employees are still working from home. That sounds like a huge number. If it's true, it's kind of crazy. As someone who works from home, I mean, there are benefits to it, and it can work in certain situations, but 94% seems a little high way after the pandemic is over. Jarrett Stepman, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us.